everybody, and welcome to day one of the Healthy Kids, Healthy Future Technical Assistance Program convening. I'm Calisti Chong, and I'll be the moderator for the first half of today's convening. I'm just going to share a couple of housekeeping items, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rochelle for the official welcome. But as you join us, we'd love for you to share your name, your state, and your favorite herb or flower in the chat. If you feel inspired, you can also share why that herb or flower is your favorite as well. You can opt into viewing closed captions for this event if you click on the Show Captions button at the bottom of your screen. We thought that we would just point that out just to make sure that everyone knows that that is available. We are going to be compiling all of the questions for the presenters throughout the event today, and we will get to as many of the questions as we can during the panel discussion at the end. You can add any questions that you have to the chat at any time, and we're going to be putting those together for the Q&A. We definitely have a full agenda with wonderful presenters from Natural Learning Initiative, South Carolina, and Wisconsin with us. And Hannah Prest is adding the agenda to the chat, but you can also view the information about this convening online. And the direct link to the convening webpage will also be added to the chat as well. If you need any support throughout the event today, please feel free to message either myself or Hannah Prest, and we're more than glad to help however we can. And with that, I'd like to introduce Roshelle Pays. Roshelle has been with Nemours Children's for more than 10 years now and is our ECE team's amazing leader and project director. So Roshelle.
Thanks, Calisti. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 2023 virtual convening of Healthy Kids, Healthy Future Technical Assistance Program. I'm Roshelle, and thank you for the introduction, Calisti. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's hard to believe, but we are approaching the final month of our 5th project year. And it has truly been a pleasure to partner with the CDC, national partners like North Carolina State and Child Care Aware of America, along with you all, our state partners. Together, we have collaborated to create healthier childcare spaces and the systems that support them. While there's a lot to explore and celebrate, today we'll be taking a closer look at national and state experiences in expanding outdoor learning environments in early care and education. We started supporting state participants in NC State's Early Childhood Outdoor Learning Environments course in 2019 as a springboard opportunity. And I know many of you are familiar with these, but these are opportunities that offer targeted and time-limited training and technical assistance resources to state agencies and organizations. We've had state partners take up these offerings every year, and we've also brought on new states each year. Since launching, more than 38 states and the District of Columbia have accessed a total of 132 different training and TA opportunities. For the Outdoor Learning Environments course, 310 participants from 23 states have completed the course and brought new skills and learnings back to their states. In 2022, we expanded offerings to also include gardening with young children. We also partnered with Robin and Nilda, who you'll hear from today, and their amazing team, to pilot a train-the-trainer model on outdoor learning environments. We continue to see increased demand and interest and just real appetite in creating natural and improved outdoor areas for young children. Today, I encourage you to ask questions of the presenters and engage in discussion with each other so we can continue building upon the foundation developed over the last 4+ years. And as a sneak peek, tomorrow we will hear national and state perspectives on using GIS story maps to improve participation in the Child and Adult Care Food Program, or CACFP. I hope you will join us tomorrow afternoon as well. And before we kick off today's presentations, I'm going to pass it off to Carrie from the CDC to join me in welcoming you today. Thank you.
Hi all, I am delighted to be here today to kick off these 2 days together. As Rochelle said, I remember the 2019 in-person meeting, and I really think it was a catalyst for much of this incredible work that we'll hear about. Reflecting on the last 5 years, I'm amazed at how far states have come by working across various partners. The CDC cooperative agreement funding streams have been able to forge both national and state partnerships through the CDC Nemours cooperative agreement, that the TAP states, the ASPHN COAG for farm to ECE, and then the work of other CDC recipients such as SPAN states. Overall, 33 states have worked tirelessly on system level changes and have really made great progress. You have built strong stakeholder groups with emphasis on equity, diversity, and inclusion. You've used the CDC spectrum of opportunities as a guiding framework to systematically advance most of the 9 spectrum areas we have, which is great. Really thinking about licensing, CACFP, QRIS, professional development, TA networks, and access initiatives. Your progress at advancing recognition programs and spreading evidence-based interventions such as Go Knapsack or Farm to ECE work have been remarkable. You've advanced equity by working with and engaging ECEs that serve low-income kids and their families. For example, when we look at the Go Knapsack data, it shows that anywhere from 50 to 80% of ECEs in some states are participating in the CACFP program, which could be a proxy for income and need. Also, within the 8 TAP states, providers have taken over 6,000 Go Knapsack trainings. One of the most innovative aspects of your work is really to, as Roshelle said, to see how the springboards have taken off. So as she said, over the past 5 years, 38 states and DC have access to 132 different opportunities. And that's just on the Nemours side alone. The model was so successful that the ASPHN Farm to ECE recipients also replicated this innovative way to advance state work and offered 5 more additional springboards on their side of the house. These opportunities, we have seen them and seen how helpful they are to broaden state system work, especially in the areas of partnerships, identifying equity-focused areas, and to help with data-driven decision-making. I think also the beauty of the opportunities were that they were subcontracted by our partners at Nemours, so individual states didn't have to arrange all of those contracts, and it really led to administrative efficiencies. Now we have tons of things to report. We have over 500 PALS trainers in 13 states. When we think about the PALS opportunity, we have examples like Iowa adopting PALS as a core training and offering it annually. We also have some data that evaluation folks, Chris Basso with partners at Nemours have collected that 97% of the trainers who responded to surveys found it helpful. We've had 17 states with equity training, and these have really yielded amazing things: roadmaps, retooling of groups, mini grants, just embedding equity into everything that you do. And then what you'll hear about tomorrow, over 20 states with GIS CACFP maps, and we'll be able to kind of dive into that with 2 states and how they've used them tomorrow. So as Roshelle said, it'll be, many of us are looking forward to that as well. And then the meat of today. So the OLE work, I think it's gone further than I ever imagined. We really thought about the Springboard OLE as an opportunity to build capacity for people to understand what high quality outdoor education spaces look like. And we just went from 0 to 100 in some ways. The courses have been taken by people in over 20 states. We've seen them spur new recognition programs. We've seen them spur pilots. We've seen from some of the evaluation data that the trainings have reached over 1,000 providers. So really, I'm just going to turn the rest of the time over. We're really delighted to have Nilda, Cosco, and Robin Moore from the Natural Learning Initiative at the North Carolina State University College of Design, and also the speakers from the states, which will be really great to hear from, to dig in and give us more depth about their work in this space. And then, just as we wrap up and think about it, we don't really know what the future holds, but I really want us to take this time together to reflect and celebrate on all that you have accomplished. The work you have done and will continue to do really has created a strong foundation for getting kids off to the healthy start that we know they all deserve. So now it's my privilege to turn over the afternoon and the discussion to this important topic of outdoor learning and our first speaker, Dr. Nilda Cosco, who is the Research Associate Professor there. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. And Carrie, it's a pleasure. And going through those numbers, I must say it has been a surprise, a pleasant surprise for us to see how people have related to the topic of outdoor learning environments, and we have seen incredible work, even personal as adults, going more outside and keeping tabs on themselves on this contact with nature. Today, I'm going to talk about healthy eating and physical activity by gardening, because I have a lot to share with you. And so first, for those that don't know us, I would like to present the areas of work of the Natural Learning Initiative. We are at the College of Design, our website, naturallearning.org. Just briefly, for context, I have two or three slides. This one is what we do: design assistance, dissemination of information, research, professional development, and many times we bring all the areas on what we call the comprehensive projects, where we do a little bit of that area in each of the projects. One of those projects was or is the Preventing Obesity by Design. We call it POD, and this is what we call the evolution. On the green is all North Carolina. On the light green, these projects that came from the first strategies that we ran, and now they are run by other organizations. In the bottom of this is out of state, with the same strategy, the people that are working with us. And you can see there in 2013, we started to work with the Department of Health and Environmental Control in South Carolina. It is a pleasure for us to have those colleagues today in the session. It's just incredible how they have developed this in South Carolina. I let them to talk about it. And so what I'm going to talk is about that top project that is a randomized controlled trial. It's a research and that we have done to feed education and extension work, because we have been working so much in the field, and sometimes because you are doing things, but you need to actually show with the numbers the impact of what you have done to have a further reach. So before I go into the project, I really need to thank the incredible team that we had working with us. Nancy Wells in Cornell has been a pillar in this work. Of course, Robin and the statisticians, that thanks God for them, that helped us understand all the numbers and the incredible impact of gardening. So this is thanks for that team. This has been an integrated project, which I really like. That is, the research feeds into education and extension, the content, as we are finding the results. So it's a research, translation, and application. And the idea here is to influence childcare, gardening practices and policies. Now, why? A little bit of the why. I think everybody knows about this. It's, the children fall short on the daily physical activity and the fruit and vegetable consumption. We imagine that gardening may promote physical activity and fruit and vegetable acceptance. Results may impact practices and policy making, and the interventions early in life might be very, very relevant for these groups of children that spend so long, so many hours every day at the childcare. Just a little bit about the research design. I'm not going to go in depth, but at least I want you to understand somehow how we did this. The research is a randomized controlled trial, 15 childcare centers. We planted and we installed 10 fruit and vegetable gardens. We worked with 31 teachers. I cannot say the path was easy. Was complex, especially working with populations in low-income areas where there is somehow a lot of instability. So we have three groups, and group 2 is a wait list control. It's a group that we follow for 2 years. The intervention was a garden installation, a garden activity guide, and a calendar that was our fidelity tool. I'll talk about that in a minute. And a weekly garden visit for the intervention centers. The garden, it was 6 raised beds, which contain 5 fruit and 6 vegetables, the same that the children tasted in the tasting session of fruits and vegetables. The garden activity guide presents 12 activities that were followed by the teachers as we were advancing in the season. They had a calendar that they would where they would check and record the activities, and we had a weekly garden trainer, a research assistant, in fact, that visited every center either on Thursday or Friday of the week and documented the progress, and we kept all the calendars, and we are processing the data now. So the participants were centers in North Carolina, in Wake County, roughly where that yellow dot is in the map. We had 51% of children receiving subsidies, that is about twice of the average in the state. At baseline, 250 children. We had more at the end because we had to re-recruit. There was a little bit of change in the enrollment. And we started with very young children, 3 years old. So that was one of the, I would say, challenges and the great pleasure of working with little ones. We had physical activity measures, very objective, with active graphs, accelerometers, and we measure mainly the moderate to vigorous physical activity and sedentary times in minutes per day. I want to, for the ones that are interested in the research, I want to draw your attention to these waitlist control centers, because from them we learned much more than perhaps I can show today, because we had 4 data gatherings, 3 pre-test, pre-intervention measures, and 1 post. So this was very interesting for us because we could follow in the time this group of 5 centers. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the results, because I suppose everybody's saying, okay, just tell me what happened there. Okay, just briefly, we asked, does the garden intervention affect children's moderate and vigorous physical activities? Yes, it does. It does, and it's statistically significant, the result. And the same for the reduction of sedentary behavior. I'm going to show you a little bit more that is about moderators. And when the statisticians went a little bit deep on this, they found that age moderates the effect of MBPA, or moderate to vigorous physical activity, and sedentary time. And here I want to say the line black, the solid line black, is the youngest group. The middle is the blue, and the oldest in the green, a solid line. These are intervention, and the broken line are control groups. So here you can see the difference, where the youngest difference is in the strongest difference is for the youngest, either for the moderate to vigorous physical activity or for the sedentary life time outside. So this is very important for us, because one of the questions is, when are we going to start? And so we know that gardening does influence that age moderates the effect of moderate to vigorous activity and sedentary behavior. And we have one more that is about sex. And this is something that we all know, that is the strongest effect is on boys than on girls. And this should bring us, this question, what are these strategies to engage the girls in more active, play outside. Now, we have seen this, now we see the numbers, right? But we have seen this all the time. Every time we go, we document with photographs and video, and we have seen these activities very vigorous on this child and just in the same place and at the same time what happens with the girls, and the same component for that matter. So I'm not sure. We put the same thing, the same tree, and the same components, and this is what happens. Anyways, in a nutshell, the intervention group achieves 6 more minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity a day and 14 minutes less of sedentary time than the control group. So there was a lot to investigate. Of course, they were gardening, but there was a lot to investigate, a lot to do in the garden. If you garden, you know how much you have to do and how much you move if you are caring for the garden, and not to mention carrying very heavy melons and other fruits or vegetables. So this is about the physical activity. Now I'm going to talk a little bit briefly about the fruit and vegetable that we look at identification, liking, and consumption in a tasting session. So we used an electronic iPad recording system for identification and liking, and we used a snack tool for the vegetable consumption, and we have great results. So yes, does the garden intervention affect children's fruit and vegetable identification? Yes, they identify more, especially vegetables that are less recognized by children than fruit. And we didn't have a statistically significant results for the fruit and vegetable liking. We think we had a problem because we had a very young sample, and we were using a graphic scale. So in another research with Texas Tech, this is the liking measure is different with actual fruits and vegetables. So I think it's going to yield better results. And yes, the tasting session shows a statistically significant result. The children ate about 25 more grams of fruit and 14 grams. And these may feel small, but if we multiply this into 3-4 intakes in the day, it's quite interesting because it could bring children to the recommended amounts. So if you're interested in all of this, we have some papers. You can go to naturallearning.org/COLIFs, that is childcare outdoor learning environments as food systems, because that is what we would like to see. We like the gardens and we like the flowers like here, but we like the fruits and vegetables. And you can download, everything is open access. So now I have a question, and it's okay, we know all of this. My grandma knew all of this too, but what happens next? Where do we go? What is our next step? What can you do? And for that, I think Robin in the next presentation will have some ideas. Okay, so thank you very much. And I'm going to let Robin to take the screen. Thank you.
Hi, Robin, if you're speaking, you're muted. Hi, Robin, do you want to turn on your camera and unmute? There you go. There you
There
are.
we go. So just takes me a little time. Sorry about that. So thank you, Nilda. That was great. So Nilda has given you some insights into the scientific basis of what we've been doing recently. Heavy duty stuff, especially conducted during COVID, as you can imagine. My job this afternoon is to talk about how we put that science on the ground and to work. And I'm going to talk generally about just a few minutes about how we think about what we do in terms of what we would like to call the physical infrastructure of childcare center outdoor play and learning environments, looking at them from an environment and behavior design and management point of view, much of which is already down on paper and available, and specifically pointing to physical diversity as a aspect or a proxy for time outdoors. So as we improve diversity, the outdoors gets more attractive and the time produces more physical activity. So that's the link there. And then incremental development in the sense that these environments are not turnkey, large cost types of spaces. They are created over the course of time, and I'll go into a little bit of the process in a minute. One piece at a time as resources become available. So they're more like a feasible, realistic action plan. And the people involved have a chance to buy into them and understand how they work and to contribute to the ongoing process. And then gardening is also the focus here, how it looks on the ground, how we get it on the ground, how we put that science to work and create spaces that, again, we can go and research and continue to grow the literature around this area of business. And that literally sets healthy eating in motion, as Nilda just explained. So it's great to be here. So there's 2 or 3 slides at the beginning here, a little heavy on text, which is not my usual style, but I think it's important to understand some of the background here of how we think about design and get this work on the ground. So EcoPALs, early childhood outdoor play and learning spaces, are physically diverse, equitable, inclusive environments composed of activity settings installed in childcare center or childcare home, affording diverse play and learning opportunities for children year-round. That's what we're talking about here. They contain age-appropriate play and learning areas, otherwise known as PALAs, offering affordances to 1 or more age groups, infants, toddlers, twos, preschoolers, and school-age children, that pretty broad range of ages, that motivate physical activity, healthy eating, outdoor learning, and social, emotional development. Although this afternoon we're focusing on healthy eating. And nature is an essential part of an EcoPAL, and it increases health benefits, play and learning opportunities to all children, and particularly healthy eating as provided by on-site gardening. So we produced a 2nd edition of the best practice toolkit that has a bunch more detail about what I'm talking about this afternoon, and it's downloadable from the NLI website. Please do so. So activity settings, that's a key concept for us. Are physically bounded spaces constructed of components that together afford predictable patterns of activity. A high quality preschool PALA would contain at least 10 of 30 or so activity settings that we've defined and which we use on a daily basis in NLI. We have a catalog of settings and components that there you see the list, right? So this is a very deliberate kind of process that we've refined over the course of time. We believe that the language we use, the terminology we use, that's the way we're going to define this area of business. We're really serious about it, as some of you who work with us know. So this is a page from the catalog. So the centers that we work with get a copy of the catalog, and they can use it for reference. So there's a great deal of diversity about how you get these things on the ground. It's just, the way they look on the site depends on the climate, the situation, the size of the center, all kinds of things. So a great deal of flexibility. Affordances, this like third leg of the stool, are characteristics or attributes of activity settings that children perceive as actionable. They're climbable, they're hideable, they're jumpable, et cetera, et cetera. And the children activate them according to prior experience and the developmental stage that they're in. Through repeated affordance activation, children develop skills, knowledge, understanding, and agency to confidently navigate their physical and social surroundings and extend their spatial range. So they're constantly exploring the environment, getting skilled at it, as you see here. So this pile of rocks in the mountains of North Carolina are not an exotic thing for these children. They are an everyday experience. So day to day, they are learning more and more about how to navigate this pile of rocks, which don't have that smooth edges together. And they're gaining all of these physical fitness skills that go along with that activity, right? So it's beyond just physical activity that is measured with an accelerometer. It's a whole lot of other things to do with physical development that are happening. And I just want to emphasize the temporal dimension, right? So these are dynamic children, 4 years old, on their path to elementary school, et cetera, learning how to navigate the environment and learning to be fearless and confident in the way that they approach things. So affordances are a key construct supporting the notion of balancing risks with benefits. So this is where this thinking about costs, about benefits and risks in the environment, the way we think about those issues. So components are individual physical items like benches, logs, boulders, tree trunks, shrubs, arbors. It goes on and on that make up these settings, or they're standalone items, like, for example, bottom left there, which is our most popular download, tires converted into flowery raised beds, not fruit and vegetables, because the tire may be a little toxic. Or the bridge on the primary pathway, or the protection rail around the planting. These are all components. These are just physical items. So EcoPal's implementation starts with a participatory design process that engages teachers' sense of ownership and frames the production of a schematic design, as you see going on here. So what our staff and the teachers interacting with and asking questions back and forth, creating the schematic, the beginnings of a schematic design on paper, you see from construction paper. It's a very dynamic process. It's a lot of fun. And then we go back to the office and we construct this, fancy looking professional product that you see at the bottom there, but it all begins with interaction. So the schematic design is an essential tool to keep the action plans on track as they embody incremental development, setting by setting kind of strategy aligned with available resources and increasing parental awareness and benefits. So everybody's on board, they're learning together as this gradually takes shape on the ground, sorry. One important factor in all of this is finding licensed design, build, landscape professionals or contractors that are essential to the success of getting this all put on the ground. So that in many ways is the greatest challenge, right? It's easier to put things into a computer and print it out on paper, but getting it on the ground like this is a different matter, more challenging in many ways. But if it's done right, here you go, left to right, That was a parking lot from a former medical center, actually. Became a wonderful childcare center conversion that you see here. So, you know, a lot of things are possible, building up from the asphalt and creating a wonderful place for children. So EcoPals are managed environments like any educational child-centered space, right? That's important. It's just happens to be outdoors. People call it an outdoor classroom. That's one way to think about it, but in fact, playing and learning are part of the same process. So it's a little bit different, a lot more freedom. And we are, of course, very serious about evaluation, as many of you know, and I would say on the way to be the kind of scientific research that Nilda talked about, but evaluation we do very rigorously based on what I've just talked about. So the collect childcare outdoor learning environments quality tool is based on what I've just been talking about. So you're going there to measure what you've got on the ground. So naturalization, just to wrap up on that aspect, which is so important, increases physical activity because that biodiversity pulls kids outdoors, increases their outdoor time, adds this interactive power, a mix of duration of activity, and increases physical activity, and equally pulls teachers outside, increases their time outdoors, their actual health, right, in some cases, and into comfortable settings where children are positively engaged, where in fact, very clearly, altercations disappear. We've had many examples of that. Kids don't fight with each or pick on each other or teach each other anymore because the environment is way more interesting than doing that. And curricular possibilities multiply. So nature is a positive health factor. There's a growing amount of research that demonstrates that. We won't have time to go into today, but the increase in biodiversity is happening where children can experience it, where they start to understand how the natural world works. And also it increases sensory stimulation that supports sensory integration, which is an important aspect of child development at this age. So classrooms connect nature from indoors to outdoors, and we've got really interesting research that shows that positively impacts teacher motivation and student engagement. So just imagine this kind of space outside the classroom. Is that going to pull you outside? Yes, it is. And what it also does is take you into this kind of environment where EcoPals supports equity and inclusion, just to touch on that one more time. So form and content is something that we talk about a lot in design. So form being the shape of things, the way it's arrayed in space, the kind of spatial context. This is a square space with pathways that have just been installed. The play equipment in the center was already there. And after just a couple of years, you can see the difference. The trees are growing up, the environment's becoming diversified, it is attracting more children outside to have a good time. So the number and diversity of activity settings, portable play equipment, and loose parts increases equity because it improves the options for children across the spectrum of any way you want to define that. This being loose parts, and it could be portable play equipment, you know, the pots and pans and so forth. And then all of the loose parts that's produced freely by nature is the critical thing. And what I mentioned a moment ago, this indoor-outdoor relationship and the transition zone between the indoors and outdoors, where other kinds of things can happen that are an immediate extension of the classroom, also important, adding to the possibilities. So the site we just looked at from the air looked like this when we started: no pathways, muddy, hard, hot, horrible kind of a space, really boring, kids fighting with each other because there's nothing else to do. 18 months later, it looked like this. The pathways are installed, it's much more active, trees are underway, starting to grow. And over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, bit by bit, different components and settings are added. And it becomes this friendly place where kids are in positive relationship with each other. They are installing things around the edges like this fitness trail, and on the fence lines, this sensory, colorful array of vines and so forth. And along another edge, mud and water, what can be more fun, right? So it's going to drag kids outside. And, you know, if you build a stage, they will come and they will start to use it and do all kinds of dramatic activity. You don't have to say anything. Kids will do it. And after school, the school-age kids, adolescents are hanging out in another corner. What a nice place to just chill off under the shade of a tree. And there's right next door, there's fresh fruit and vegetables you can harvest from the beds that are up against the fence, protected, and offering snacks for the middle of the afternoon. So as Nilda mentioned, the pod strategy, which supports all that I've been talking about, and gardening is embedded into that strategy. And this again is the gardening activity guide that was part of CoLeafs and has this 12-step gardening process that's subdivided into 3 phases. Each one has 4 steps, so 12 steps in all. And each of those pages looks like this standardized layout, telling you where you are in the process, suggesting activities, giving some vocabulary guide to the classroom teacher, book suggestions, fun facts and tips and that kind of thing. And this, you know, growing collection of children's literature that is directly connected to gardening, which is phenomenal. It's such creative, useful work. So if we go to the beginning of the process and start with examining seeds and plants, this is phase 1, sprouting, preparing beds, planting, that kind of thing. And we stress that it doesn't matter where you start with gardening, right? It can just be a bunch of pots lined up against the fence, or it can be a recycled pallet, but make sure it's done safely, or it can be some grow bags in front of the entrance to the center. You know, there's just easy action. So if you go to our website, you'll find info sheets and leaflets that are garden related, very particularly info sheet number 24, which shows you all kinds of ways to install a garden. And if you go there, you'll find that each of those photographs is light box, so you can get them close up. And so examining seeds and plants is the first step. And here we had one of our experience a little while ago, which we captured in video. And this is the world premiere.
We have cucumbers, tomatoes, we have borage, which is an edible flower, cilantro, some lettuce I just transplanted, and we also have some purple basil up top, some romaine, and then right behind the door here, some tomatoes, some basil, eggplant, cantaloupe and watermelon, marigolds, and some zucchini.
Can anybody guess what this is called?
Yeah.
Good job. Good job. So let's examine the seeds. And do you know what the seeds do?
The seeds help it grow.
They start the plant to grow, right?
Yeah.
Can you pull the seeds out of that one? Where are the seeds? Let me see if you got a seed in your hand. You do have a seed in your hand.
I have a seed.
Still little seeds, but these are the seeds right here.
We've got more seeds.
What can you tell me about these seeds? They're small seeds. And then look at this right here. Can you imagine that this is what it grows into? This tall plant?
Are they spicy?
Sometimes, some of them,
these are.
the green ones are, the red ones are sweet.
I
Sometimes.
knew the red ones were.
The red and the yellow ones are really sweet. We're just going to put them
Put them in
there.
that one if you want.
Okay. We're just collecting seeds. See if they look similar. Tell me if you think, tell me if you think they look the same.
Compared to these seeds, do they look the same or do they look different?
Let me cut you a piece. Do I see this plant?
Yeah.
This right here
It's that one.
is this one.
Like that. Yes, I did it.
You did it? Did you plant your seeds?
Yeah.
Let me see. In the dirt?
I like it.
You like it, don't you? Well, take it home and grow it. And then you can have cucumbers all summer long.
We have cucumbers, tomatoes.
Okay, so you know, the process goes on, right? through the growing season with our colleagues at the extension, at the university here, but across the country, same thing. Advice about how to plant, where to plant. We focus on warm season at this time of year, 11 different plants. Cantaloupe, which actually grows in different degrees across the country. So it's an interesting kind of state tie-in. And then at the end of the season, harvesting and snacking, bringing it back into the classroom, eating the alphabet, tying it into the literature, then taking it home and reinforcing the home connection, be it with carrots in their backpacks there, or blueberries, and pick up a recipe as you go through the lobby at the center, or in this case, kale chips, which this child brought home and taught his mother how to cook. It's a yummy thing. We send out a newsletter to families from the centers. And just to wrap up here, this is the latest and greatest interactive virtual tour with their colleagues at Texas Tech. It's a collaborative project, which is basically a 3D walkthrough, which is embedded with our resources from NLI mainly. And we think it's going to be a powerful training tool. We would love to get your feedback from this. So I think our friends in the team at Nemours have put this into the chat, but you will also receive these QR codes through the email. And we would really appreciate if you take a look at this new tool and tell us what you think about it in terms of its future potential. So thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Robin and Nilda. I think that we have a couple of minutes. We're a little bit ahead of schedule. Does anyone have any questions? Just any burning questions for Robin and Nilda for now? You can either unmute and share, or you can post in the chat box. All right. Well, Nilda and Robin, thank you so much again for your presentation. We look forward to talking with you a bit more during the panel discussion at the end. Like we've mentioned several times already, if you have any questions for Nilda and Robin, please, you can go ahead and enter them into the chat. We're going to be compiling all of the questions, and we will have a really nice time at the end with all of the panelists, all of the presenters. Now we're going to actually transition to some breakout rooms for a very short discussion. Don't lose me here. I know we tend to lose people during breakout rooms, but we wanted to provide you all an opportunity to network with some of your colleagues and chat about the outdoor learning environment work you're doing in your state, or perhaps just to hear from other states about some things that they're doing as well. So we're going to spend around the next 10 minutes in small groups of around 4 people each. We hope you all will share your camera and engage during the session as well. You know, just sharing your camera always helps with discussions in breakout rooms to be a little more personal. We've prepared a couple of questions for your group to consider discussing. So those questions can be found on the screen. And then Hannah, she probably has already added them to the chat box as well. So you'll have them during your breakout room. So whenever you get in there, just like always, you all know the drill already. So just feel free to introduce yourselves to each other first and then jump into the questions. So these are suggested questions. If you all want to talk about other things other than the questions that we've shared, please feel free to do that as well. So after around 10 minutes, we're going to bring everyone back together and we'll have a quick share out. So we encourage you to jot down a couple of notes from your discussion to consider sharing with everyone. And just as a to share a little bit about what's coming next. So following the breakout rooms, we're going to have a short break, a 5-minute break. And then we're thrilled to have presenters from South Carolina and Wisconsin with us to share about the outdoor learning environment work and what that's looked like for them over the last few years. And with that, I think that we're ready to launch into breakout rooms. Does anyone have any questions? Everybody know what we're doing? All right. Well, we will see you in about 10 minutes. Welcome back. I'll wait a second for everybody to join us again. All right, well, welcome back. I hope you all enjoyed your time with each other. As we were looking through the list, we realized there were some folks from the same states that are in the same group. That was not planned. It was all random. So you must have just meant to be together today. So we'd love to hear some of your responses, some things that you talked about. Anyone like to share about anything that you discussed? Any exciting outdoor learning environment work going on in your state that you'd like to share with everyone?
I can jump in. This is Erin from Iowa. I think what's exciting myself and one of our statewide trainers recently participated in the Train the Trainer course. And so our wheels are turning on how we can continue to advance this work in the state. And for our capstone project, we offered a training to providers, and we had over 70 attend this training for our capstone project. And so the feedback of this topic was overwhelmingly received very well, and people loved it. So yeah, we're excited to kind of build off that.
That is fabulous, Erin. Well, thank you for sharing. Anyone else have any? Go ahead.
Sorry, Calisti, it's Cynthia from Vermont. And I can just share a brand new development for us. We have a fairly robust farm to early childhood movement, which certainly incorporates outdoor learning. But I just learned this morning that we have a relatively new equity and trauma informed division and a steering group getting together, and they are very interested in incorporating farm to school, early childhood, what have you, and supporting any of those type of initiatives from the social emotional wellness purview. So that's a new development for us that I think will help us beyond the funding when additional partners get involved in this type of work. So we're really excited to see how that develops.
We're excited to follow your journey. Anyone else?
This is Cindy from Kentucky, and received some funds that were carryover funds from our grant, and they allowed us to start a pilot project. And so we did training with our sites. We had over 40 people in attendance. This is in Eastern Kentucky. And we had 3 sites, 2 here, and 1 are in the process of building their OLE or working on their OLE right now. Hey, it's like Robin Moore mentioned earlier, it wasn't terribly expensive, and we hope to continue this. We do plan to write a manual or a plan for other child care centers in the state to refer to on how to start an OLE in there. And we feel
Cindy, I think we might have lost you. We were chatting with her earlier and she was having some tech issues with internet. All right. Anyone else want to share about their OLE work? Or if no one else wants to share about their OLE work, I'd love to hear if you all brainstorm any type of support that you might need beyond funding to advance this kind of work in your state. Anyone have any ideas or thoughts there? All right.
I'll share. This is Monet from California. One of the things I know comes up a lot for us talking with our health departments as well as our ECE partners is, oh gosh, this is so big. Can you just give me some cliff notes, bite-sized tip sheets, things like that, just for people who haven't ever done this but would like to do something? And I know there's lots of different resources out there, I think, that can help them with that, but they're always looking for really specific, super small, how to get started, basic kind of things, all pulled together in one place. It's a very helpful resource for somebody who's just never done this before, but is excited about it.
Exactly. That's awesome. Certainly. Like, what does this actually look like on the ground, and what are some feasible, tangible first steps that I could take to get started with this journey?
Absolutely. And not in a big, stack of paper, a couple of sheets. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. And Amy, I think that everyone is interested in this myth busting happening in North Carolina. Don't know if you would like to share, or someone else from North Carolina would like to share.
Richard, can you explain? I loved it.
Sure. Well, and Robin and Nilda are online, so they started a lot of this work here in North Carolina. But I think it's that kind of the beliefs that a lot of the child care programs and providers have about certain things, and they may hear that from licensing, they may hear that from sanitation, and they may feel like they can't do certain things because it's just not the right way to do it, or it could be harmful. We had spent some time years ago kind of working with TAs and licensing folks around kind of making sure those myths were corrected, or they were actually accurate information, so that they could actually find solutions to potential challenges, and not use the challenge as a challenge, but to find a success for it. So that was kind of the work that had been done.
Nilda, you want to do a quick tomato story?
There you go, tomato, good one.
Hi, Rich. Yes, how are you? So every year when we were in the normal years or the past years, we used to meet every year in person, and we were about 180, 200 people, maybe in a botanical garden and whatever. And we would do this Mythbusters session. The session included people from sanitation, licensing, all the people that make decisions about what to do or not, and in the childcare center. So people will come with a myth. Oh, it's not possible to plant fruit trees, and so everybody would have a response and actually, dissipate the myth. And one year we had this discussion about tomatoes, because tomatoes was in the list of poisonous plants, because, it is part of the, now I forget, the people that are, yes, say that.
It's a list that was produced by colleagues at NC State University,
Yes.
based on chemical analysis,
Right.
not
So,
illness of kids.
so we took that, and in that conference, we decided, a group of us, in fact, about 6 or 7, I'm not sure, to work on it, including calling on the people that put the tomatoes in the poisonous plants list. And we managed to reach a conclusion that tomatoes can go into childcare centers, except for infants and toddlers. But it could be in the preschool. So these are the things that are not money, is a group of people, right? Like Rich and other people that are joining this session with a commitment to make a change, and go ahead and talk to the friends in the division or sanitation or whatever, and make it happen. So that's the story about the tomatoes. And I'm going to try to find it in the website and put the link in the chat.
Awesome. Thank y'all for sharing.